An alarming trend is unfolding among millions of Americans that could have serious repercussions for fertility and fetal health. The use of cannabis, a habit now practiced by over 62 million people in the United States, is increasingly linked to risks such as birth defects and autism. But here's where it gets controversial. As marijuana becomes more widely accepted and legalized, many users remain unaware of these potential dangers, especially those planning to conceive or undergoing fertility treatments. Recent research from the University of Toronto sheds new light on how cannabis may impact reproductive health. The study highlights a striking rise in marijuana use among Americans aged 12 and older, from just 12.6% in 2013 to nearly 22% in 2023, which translates to approximately 61.8 million people. This surge is largely fueled by changes in legal status and social attitudes, sparking concerns about cannabis's hidden effects on fertility and early development of embryos. To explore this issue, researchers conducted two complementary studies focusing on human egg cells, oocytes, and their exposure to THC, the psychoactive component of marijuana. The first was a laboratory experiment where immature human egg cells were directly exposed to THC. Scientists then observed how this exposure affected the chromosomal development essential for healthy embryo formation. The second study analyzed fluid samples from 1,059 patients undergoing in vitro fertilization, IVF, a common fertility treatment where eggs and sperm are combined in a lab to create embryos for implantation. Among these IVF patients, 62 fluid samples tested positive for THC, representing about 6% of the group. Researchers compared the embryonic development outcomes between those with THC-positive samples and those without any THC exposure. Their findings revealed a concerning trend. Embryos from THC-exposed egg cells were less likely to have the correct number of chromosomes, a critical factor that can determine whether pregnancies succeed or miscarry. Specifically, only 60% of embryos from the THC-positive group had the normal chromosomal count versus 67% in the THC-negative group. In the lab study, THC exposure caused a 9% increase in embryos with abnormal chromosome numbers, and more than doubled abnormalities in spindle structures, which play a vital role in chromosome separation during cell division. However, it's important to note a significant caveat. The participants undergoing IVF were also receiving high doses of fertility hormones, which could influence how their bodies respond to THC. Therefore, these results might not apply exactly the same way to the general population. Also, since the samples were from women under 40, and the timing of their THC consumption wasn't precisely known, more research is necessary to clarify the broader implications. Why does this matter? Chromosomal abnormalities in embryos often lead to failed implantation or miscarriage. In rarer cases, they can cause severe genetic disorders such as Down syndrome, Edwards syndrome, and Patau syndrome, conditions that can severely affect a child's development and quality of life. The study also found that THC disrupts the ability of immature egg cells to correctly organize their chromosomes during division, a process crucial for normal fetal development. Adding another layer to the discussion, previous research from the Autism Research Institute links prenatal cannabis exposure to an increased risk of autism spectrum disorders, backed by animal studies suggesting THC might induce genetic mutations. Given that chromosomal abnormalities are also connected to autism, this raises important questions about the long-term effects of cannabis use during pregnancy or even attempts to conceive. Based on their findings, the researchers urge greater awareness and caution among individuals with ovaries, especially those engaged in fertility treatments. They emphasize the importance of informing patients about potential risks when consuming cannabis, and recommend healthcare policymakers, medical societies, and public health organizations develop clear guidelines and advice on cannabis use for those seeking to conceive. These insights were published in the reputable journal Nature Communications, further underscoring the urgency of examining cannabis's effects in the context of reproductive health. This isn't the first time cannabis has been scrutinized for its impact on fertility. A 2023 study at the University of California, Irvine found that adolescent female mice exposed to THC had 50% fewer healthy ovarian follicles compared to mice without exposure by adulthood. Researchers suspect that THC interferes with the endocannabinoid system, a biological system activated by cannabis, which can harm ovarian follicles or cause them to deplete prematurely. With marijuana use widespread among American teens, scientists are worried many young women may unknowingly jeopardize their future fertility. Beyond females, marijuana's impact on male fertility is also under the microscope. A 2018 study conducted by researchers from Tulane University and the University of Washington examined sperm from men in Washington state, where recreational cannabis has been legal since 2012. The findings showed that men who had used cannabis at any point were more prone to having abnormally shaped sperm and lower sperm concentrations compared to men with no history of use. The growing body of evidence presents a complicated picture. While marijuana is increasingly normalized, its potential to harm reproductive health and fetal development remains a critical concern that many may overlook. So here's the question for you. Should the surge in cannabis legalization come with stronger warnings about its effects on fertility and pregnancy? Or do you believe the risks are being overstated? Share your thoughts and join the conversation, because this debate is far from settled.